Hey there, welcome back to the garage. The next step in rebuilding this Chevy 350 is to order some parts for it. In order to order the parts, we need to know what size we need to order. As an engine runs, the cylinders wear, and so the bores get bigger, so we might have to get rings that are larger than normal. And the crankshaft, the bearings, as the journals wear, they get smaller, so we might have to get undersized bearings. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how you measure these with the cheapest tools you can find. Basically, hopefully, tools that you've got around your garage already. We'll be able to measure them and decide what pieces we need and get those ordered. For measuring the rings, the first thing we need to do is we need to get one of these old pistons. And first, all your pistons, inspect all of them. Take a look at the skirts, make sure they don't have gouges in them. This, you can see some scuff lines, but this is fine. This is a completely reusable piston. Nothing's cracked, nothing's broken. Take a look at all your rings. So what you want to do is you need to at least clean one of them out for being able to do this measurement. First thing to do, the most useful, is take one of your rings and just break it. And you can use this square end of the ring to scrape out the inside of these ring grooves. It's probably one of the best tools for cleaning these things out. Do that with some solvent wire brush. You're going to have to pull off the two top compression rings, and then this oil ring is actually 3 rings. I'll show you what that looks like here. So you'll have 2 compression rings, like those, and then the oil ring is in 3 pieces. You have to pull, so it's got this wavy guy here, then it's got the solid rings above and below, so it'll be like that. You have to pull these flat solid ones out first, and then this guy comes out. You can see there's the gap in that solid one there, and there's the gap in this other guy. So just take all those rings out. Use a broken ring and wire brush, some solvent, get them clean. Once you have one cleaned up fairly well, take a look at the top. If it's been rebuilt, oversized pistons should be marked with the size. I don't see any markings on this. It's got this G on it, but that's not a size. It'll say something like 010030, etc. So this one looks like it's a standard piston. A Chevy 350 has a 4-inch bore, so we can check this. If you don't have a way to check it, you can take it to a machine shop. But calipers here should be enough. So I come out, and we know that this should be 4 inches. Let's see if I can get this upright for you guys. If I swing across, looks like 3.98, 3.97, something like that. So it's just under 4 inch, so that tells me that this is a standard piston. Normally, you could say, okay, well, if I'm going to reuse these pistons, we can just get some standard rings and go back together. Before we do that, we want to measure the bore and make sure it hasn't worn out so far that this piston's going to be slopping around and flapping in there. With a standard piston, you can go 10 thousandths over on a ring to help seal, but you don't want to go any bigger than that. If you've got bore problems that make it more than 10 thousandths large, you'll have to machine it, bore it out, and that means get larger pistons. So hopefully we don't have to do that. So let's take a look at how you can check that yourself, again, with real easy tools and stuff that hopefully you've got laying around the garage. Couple of things to pay attention to here. First, we know that as the piston comes up, the rings come up, and they stop at a point. You can usually feel it. You can definitely see it. they don't come all the way to the top. So we know that the very top edge of this is the bore that the cylinder was at from the factory or the last time it was put together. So that's going to be our reference size. We know that any wear is going to be larger than that spot. So what we want to do is we want to measure what that looks like. The typical machinist way to do it is to use one of these snap gauges that you can put in like that, and then lock it, then remove it, and measure it. But not everybody has snap gauges like this. So how can we do it without the snap gauge? We can do it with an old ring, a feeler gauge, and the use of pi. The nice thing we know is that we have the relationship between the diameter of a circle and the circumference. And we'll not get into too deep on the math here, but what we're going to do is we want to measure the difference of a worn part of the cylinder with a part of the cylinder that we know is good. And we know that this reference area up at the top is worn. So it's going to be whatever the machined diameter was. We're going to assume that that is the correct or perfect size. So we take these feeler gauges. There are a bunch of different sizes. You can see this guy's marked. This one's 10 thousandths, 20 thousandths, 25. What we do is we stack them together to get a size, and then we measure the gap in this ring. In this one, I can't get anything else in. It should be a nice tight fit. You shouldn't have any other slop. You can't put anything in. You might have to stack and go back and forth to find out what size this is. I'd already done this before I started videoing, so I knew what size it was going to be. So this gap is 10 plus 20 plus 25. So that's what, 45, 55? So we know that the gap here is 55. Now we want to measure the difference from that in worn areas. We don't want to check in one spot. We want to check up here at the top. Then we want to check again down here at the bottom. Because if it's tapered so that the sides aren't straight, if they do this or this, we want to know. So we're going to check at the top and the bottom. And if you look down in there, look right here, you can see where it's all carbon and dull. And then right above that, that's the bottom of the travel where the rings go. So you want to check once right up here and once right down here. You can check in the middle too, but usually if you just check in the top and the bottom, you're probably good. So I'm going to go down in. Now we want to make sure that this ring is completely flat in the bore. Easiest way to do that is to take an old piston that you cleaned up. If I bring it up here, since the piston is the right size, it's going to be completely square. Then we use that to push that guy up just a little bit. Now the ring is flat, so we know it is square in the bore. I'm below that ridge, so I'm in the wear area. I like to check just below it. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit here, and I'm going to use 2 sets of feeler gauges because it's easier to show. But you can do this with one. So here's my reference. This is where it was up above the wear. If I put that in there, you can see there's a gap there now, right? So if I take this other feeler gauge and I'll try a 24 thousandths, it does not fit. I can't get it in there. So let's go a little smaller. There it is. Let's try 20 thousandths. And that fits. We know that that gap change is the circumference of the circle We know that the circumference is actually pi times the diameter. So effectively for every 31 thousandths that this grows, or 31.4, the diameter grows by 10 thousandths. So we know that if this was about 20 thousandths change, we know that this direction changed 20 divided by 3.14. So changed about 6 thousandths. So we know that's well under 10. And this is probably the most worn area. We can check in the middle too, but then we'll check at the bottom. So what that tells us is we couldn't even get a 10,000th ring in here. We'll have to go standard. We know that much just after this first measurement. Now we want to check here. Check, again, the bottom. Get my finger in here. Check the bottom. And then do that on all 8 cylinders, checking for how far out they are. Check for taper. So let's push this guy down. We can just use the piston again. Push it down in here. I can go a little further. That's pretty good. So down at the bottom, I could only get 10 thousandths in there. So it was 20 up at the top, 10 at the bottom. So that's 10 thousandths difference in circumference. Divide that by 3.1. That gives us about 2.5, somewhere in there, thousandths taper from the top to the bottom. That's fine in my book. Shouldn't be any problem at all. So this cylinder is good. While you've got a ring in the cylinder, we can also check for out of round. And that's really easy to do. You just put that ring down in there and then take a bright light, flashlight or shop light, something like that. Go down underneath like this and then look all the way around the edge to see if you can see light. If you can see light anywhere, then you know that it's out around. You have a spot that's, well, out around. So that would be a problem as well. So while you're checking all of this ring gap, check for roundness of the cylinders as well. And there you have it. That's how you determine what size rings you need. We'll get those ordered as soon as we figure out what bearing size we also need. Thanks for watching.